Hello there and welcome to yet another tutorial for the Nederlab onderzoeksportaal. This time around we're going to be focusing on complex query building and comparing the results of two queries to one another. So in order to get started we will need a case. So let's start by having a look at different constructions involving the dative in Dutch. The first of which is of course ik geef een appel aan jou. So I give an apple to you, and ik geef jou een appel. I give you an apple. The first one we will call the aan-constructie, and the second one is the double object construction, both of which we will build a query for in this tutorial. So let's get started. First of all, let's start with our very first query, and we will go to advanced straight away. So there are of course a lot of different verbs that can have a dative construction. Going for them all would take a long time and would take many individual queries to set right. So what we're going to do is we're going to define 4 of them in one query. Technically, if you want to have the results as cleanly as possible, it is probably best to give a query for one verb at a time. But for this exercise, we're going to combine a few searches. So if you want to have an OR relation between two elements in the same box, in the box you can click OR to generate another level. So for this exercise we've chosen 4 different verbs that have a dative construction. Of course, geven, which is the most prominent verb with dative construction in Dutch. And then there will be verkopen, to sell, brengen, to bring, and verzoeken, to ask. And we want to specify that the words we are looking for are in fact verbs. Now, okay, so we're going for the aan-constructie first. In the aan-constructie, the verb is followed by a noun phrase first. Now, of course, noun phrases can be very complex, but keep in mind that the more complex we define this noun phrase, the more difficult it will be to weed out the unwanted results. Of course, in order to do this assignment properly, many different queries for the same construction will have to be made. But for now, it will do to select a random word, which could be an article or an adjective, and then give us a noun. Now, going back to this word undefined word in between, of course, it is definitely possible to specify that we want either an article or an adjective, or maybe even a pronoun. For the pronoun, of course, is it can be the flower, it can be blue flower, it can be my flower. So that's kind of the reasoning we are following in this in creating the query this way. However, we don't necessarily need to have any of these words here, so we can define them over here by clicking herhaal, and we can define how often this word is repeated. Let's say 0 to once. Of course, we can also say 0 to 2 times. It depends on how you want to build your query. For now, we're going to look at results with a single element before the noun. Of course, then there we'll have our primary word we're looking for. It's called aan, and we need to add an option to that, so we use the and function, and this will be a preposition. Following the word aan, we also need a noun phrase, and I'll show you exactly why we need that. So for now, this will be our query. Press search, and there are our results. So if we look at the results, we need to make sure that the query gives us the results that we want, of course. Let's have a look at this. The heaven gives a punch to your companies, which is good. Probably not companies in this case, but well, at least the construction seems to. I sold my share to someone. I give the text. No, wait, this is a very interesting result, which indicates why our query is not good enough. This does not say that someone gives the text to someone else. No, it says the text indicates. So we are dealing with the verb aangeven, which does not take a dative construction. And this is exactly why we need to indicate that behind the word aan, we need another noun phrase. So let's go back to the query builder. Alright, so what we need to do now is, well, repeat these two blocks be on the other side of the preposition. Keep in mind though that we previously defined this herhaal function 0 to 1, and when you go back to the query builder it automatically goes back to 1 if you put 0 in there. So we have to specify that we want the 0. Alright, so here we go again. We need to define the article, we need to define the adjective, and we need to define the possibility of a pronoun being there. And of course we also want 0 to 1 times, and we have to say we want a noun at the end. So make sure you have a good look at what we've defined, and also have a look at this text box below, which shows the query in its text form. We will have a closer look at that later for the next query. For now, however, let's search once more. Alright, now let's have a little look at the results and see whether anything changed. And indeed, something has changed. We are now seeing that any of these results meet our demands and actually are aanconstructies. So let's cherish this. We have a lot of documents though, and they might not all be to your interest. So let's have a look at the timeline. And let's go to the relative amount of hits per the amount of words inside a document. And we get this. So we have a spike here in the CRM collection, but the spike is overshadowing what's happening over here. So let's deactivate CRM. So we say we want to know in which of the two constructions we're looking at is used more in the early modern period. Let's say that we don't need to know anything about sonar or the KB content. More interesting are the collections that give us information about this time period here. Now, in order to zoom in, we have 3 selected: EDBO, DBNL and Staat-Generaal Digitaal. We should go to the first page, select these collections manually, and finally Staat-Generaal Digitaal. And we are still have quite a lot of documents, significantly less than last time, but it will help if we set our year of publication to say 1200 to 1850 and search again. And with 2000 documents we will have something worth looking at. So let's save this collection as our corpus, and we call this tutorial 5 aan. There it already is. Alright, and this is our corpus. So naturally, it is very likely that the and construction occurs in different formats. This is a sentence we're looking at that is based at a finite verb followed by a small noun phrase followed by the an preposition and another small noun phrase. It is of course very possible that the an preposition plus noun phrase occurs before the verb, as in aan jou geef ik de appel. And it is even possible that we are dealing with an infinitival sentence construction. Of course, these will all have to be constructed separately, and they can actually be joined later on if that's necessary. So let's give a brief demonstration of how that would work. So naturally, how that would work is if we want an infinitival construction, then we should see if we can move this to the other side. So let's delete it here and recreate it here. So we use lemma geven or lemma verkopen or lemma brengen or lemma verzoeken. And we still want to say that we are dealing with a verb. You can even define that you are looking for an infinitival form specifically, but for now that will not be necessary. So let's search for these sentence constructions and see if what we come up with is somehow relevant. As you can see, the text boxes of optional articles, adjectives and pronouns have once again removed their specification of repeating it 0 to once. So we will have to search again with these fixes. Alright, so there we are. So let's scroll down and see how useful these results are. These are good constructions because this is about I mean it's the very same entry, but if you look at the construction, this is not at all an infinitival construction, but this is a subclause where the verb is at the end, but the other elements are very much in place. So definitely this is a good addition to the corpus, and you can go through all the results and select for yourself. Now if we go to the timeline, the Save Changes button has changed to Save Corpus button, in case you have forgotten to initiate a new search and are instead still operating in the existing space. So when this page is loaded, you can click Save as Corpus, and you will need to respecify tutorial 5 and part 2. Save changes. So what we want to do now is we want to combine these two. We go to My Nederlab and we see both corpora here. So we select them both and go to Samenvoegen. Go. So then we get a combined corpus of the both of them, which you can rename, change and adapt in any way you can do with the other two. Alright, let's go and now look for the double object construction. So let's re-specify what we have already determined earlier. We are looking for between the years of 1200 and 1850. Right? We are looking at DBNL. We are looking at EDBO. And at the Staten-Generaal Digitaal. And then we need to build our query. So this time let's not go to advanced search, but let's go and construct a query in expert search. Expert search is more difficult to master and to get to know because you have to type your query from scratch. You can choose from a couple of examples, pre-made examples, like if you click, for instance, it'll give you a query, and you can use these to learn how to make your query even better. But for now, we're going to construct this sentence, this query from scratch, just as an exercise. So we are looking for the exact same as last time, in the beginning at least. We're going to open with the square bracket to indicate that we are starting a block. And since we are defining two properties of this block, we will need to use the normal brackets to say we're looking for something with a lemma, geven. And instead of, if we wanted to close it, we can do that right now, but we're not going to, because we are going to say that we want the OR function for the other lemma of brengen, and another OR, lemma is verkopen, and another OR for the final one, lemma is verzoeken. And now we can close the normal bracket, because this is one item, but we're not done. Use the ampersand to indicate that we're doing an AND relation between the following, and we want to say the part of speech or the type of word is verb. And we close with a square bracket. So now we've defined the first block. Let's go on. So we want a word with the part of speech of an article. We want it to have as part of speech of an adjective, or we want it to have the part of speech of a pronoun. Now we want these to be optional, remember, so we have to open with a curly bracket 0, 1, which means that we want an amount of the preceding block between 0 and 1. Of course we want a noun, so with square brackets we open a new block and we say this must be a noun. A double object construction has two noun phrases in a row, so let's just stick to that philosophy. We can type this all over again, or we can go back, copy the relevant stuff and paste it. So what we have now is we have defined that we want a verb with the lemma of geven, brengen, verkopen or verzoeken, followed by two noun phrases, both which have one noun and possibly an article, an adjective or a pronoun. So let's search. I was planning to edit this out, but actually this is a pretty good teaching moment. When you type a query from scratch, you are of course more likely to produce errors because you are typing this from scratch and the code is no longer pre-generated. As you can see, we opened a bracket here and never closed it. And for CQL and any programming language, that is a problem. So we need to close this particular set of items right here before the closing square bracket. And since we copied the code to here, we need to do the same thing here. Alright. Another mistake we made was that we did not put extra quotation marks around this word, which also gives an error in the code. So before you click search, make sure you double check everything to make sure all the brackets are closed and all the initiated segments are finalized. Let's try again, and this time we are more successful. And there we have our results. So let's have a little look at them. Just like previous times, we have to make sure that the results are what we need them to be. And this does not look like it has, like that is the case. Of course, when you are dealing with Middle Dutch and to some extent early modern Dutch, there will be many words that will be spelled differently, and thus the automatic parsing system will not always give it the proper tag, so to speak. In this case, een is an article, or at least an adjective, but if we go and select pos, it will say this is a noun. This particular query will not have all the wrong results, but these results will be there. And for now, we need to find a way to omit them. And by doing for that, we'll have to make some radical changes. We need to say that this intervening item is actually a necessity, because if we don't, we get all these wrongfully tagged words in our results. Of course, you can do this manually by taking all of the results and manually filtering out these exceptions. But if there are a lot, we need to adjust our query. And there we are. Of course, it is necessary that you go through the results and determine how successful your edit of the query was. And in some cases it will still not be enough, but for now let's say that it is. Let's say that this query is perfect as it is and gives us exactly the results that we want from this query. We can save it as a corpus again, we can look at the timeline, and then we can compare it to the earlier query we did for the aanconstructie. There we are. Let's go to relative amount of hits. And what we can see is that in the latter half of the period we've been looking at, this construction is more common. We need to be able to compare it to the other one to make sure which one has a stronger presence. And of course, whether that difference is at all statistically significant is a whole different matter entirely. For now, we've looked at building more complex queries. One of them we did in the advanced search mode, the other we did in expert search, which ultimately is the stronger tool because you can type in anything, but it might be a bit more daunting to people not that familiar with CQL. I hope this was a useful tutorial for you all. Thank you very much for watching, and until next time.